Hello and welcome back to another episode of Nick Tiffany's Movie Reviews, coming at you online and in print format at nicktiffany.com, in audio format wherever you get your podcasts, in video, on YouTube, TikTok, Reels, pretty much wherever you have social media, you can find us there. Today we are talking about one that is definitely more for the fun than for the review, I would say. This is always one of those crossroads movies where it's like, is the critical analysis really going to change much as far as what you think of this film or whether you're going to go to this film or not? Is this the sort of film that warrants the deep critical insight that some others do? The question is probably not. Maybe on paper it should if we were really doing our job properly here today. But I feel like there's no other way to talk about Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire, without, just really throwing caution to the wind and saying, we're getting into campy, weird, goofy territory here. So if you're already curious about this movie, you probably have some interest in these characters. So we'll just dive right in and say the movie's fine. The movie has some pretty fun action bits, but the weirdest thing to me is that it's 2024. 10 years ago, we had that remade Godzilla film that really stunned. I thought they did a really terrific job with that one. That kind of ushered in this whole monsters wave that the Monarch monster universe that they were trying to set up. And so, I don't know, going back to what Gareth Edwards did way back in 2014, I know way back, I don't think any of this was the goal. I think when he made that movie, he was like, I'm just going to make an awesome Godzilla movie, reintroduce some new American audiences. We're really going to play with the mythos, with this whole shrouding him for part of the movie, building up this lore, this massive gargantuan creature. Since then, and then they did a follow up to that. They did the Godzilla King of the Monsters. And I'm trying to remember, I'm just going to look it up here. I don't believe that he directed that movie. Yeah, no, Michael Dougherty, whoever Michael Dougherty is, who co-wrote, I guess, X2 and Superman Returns. All right, yeah, he wrote the story sequel for Godzilla vs. Kong. So, I don't know. When Gareth Edwards kind of was moved away or chose to move on from Godzilla, maybe it's because he knew what they were planning. Then you had Jordan Vaughn Roberts, who comes in like 2017, does Kong Skull Island, which, looking back, I remember enjoying that largely as well. So come 2021, we're kind of coming out of COVID, that second wave. They're still doing movies at home. I remember the Snyder Cut of Justice League had kind of just come out. The next thing that was coming, or maybe it was the first thing that was coming after that, was Kong vs. Godzilla. And to be honest, I didn't watch that in theaters. I watched it at home on HBO. So maybe I missed some of it, but I don't know. Mecha Godzilla, all the different fights, it was fine, but the same thing plagues all of these movies, and it's just mildly uninteresting human characters who take up way too much time. I don't know how we don't have a King Kong that looks better, is as serious as Peter Jackson's was, because I don't know. I think back to that and having just watched that recently, just even effects wise, some of it just looks way better than what we have today. And I know I'm way more a fan of serious tones when it comes to telling some of these crazy stories. And I get that with all the different eras of Godzilla and these monsters in the Showa era with Mothra, Ghidorah, all these different creatures, there is a silly element to it. Obviously, these are monsters fighting. If you watch any of the old clips and footage from the old films, it's goofy. So I totally get that some of it should be goofy, or it's not going to look super cool, or there's really no way to make something look totally believable without it also just kind of looking odd, because these are massive creatures. Case in point, Godzilla running in this movie. After he absorbs all of this radiation at some point and continues to grow in size, somehow this man's running around like he's doing a 40-yard dash, like it's no biggie. And that's really not like the science side of me being like, he can't run that fast or he shouldn't be able to move that quickly. It just looks odd. You expect King Kong to kind of do the ape running type deal. And if Godzilla's running, he's doing a nice little slow motion kind of run because he's freaking massive. So they're just, I don't know, there's little things like that in this movie and in these movies that just kind of bugs me a little bit. Another thing that really bugs me, director Adam Wingard, who did this film and he did the previous Godzilla vs. Kong. I don't know how he got the job for this movie. This is the classic Hollywood world where Adam Wingard is, predominantly like a horror thriller director. He did one of the VHS movies. He did Your Next. He did The Guest, which is great with Dan Stevens. So I was glad that at least he brought Dan Stevens along for some of this ride. But I don't know. A lot of his work, I think, works really well in a different genre. And there's not a ton of horror in these movies, which is kind of a letdown because you're obviously dealing with, especially in Godzilla's case, like really horrifying creatures. And there's moments of different titans and kaijus or other creatures in the film that are like done in an instant. Like this man does not care about Godzilla at all. And you know what? It's fine. Kong is far more of a vessel for humans and the human characters to interact with. But I just, the time and care that you give to Kong, it's like, could you give like 10 minutes to Godzilla maybe? Rather than just like, oh, we know Godzilla's a badass and look at him. Oh, he's coming and he's doing the classic open the jaws, atomic breath down there. Boom, Bob's your uncle. And we're back to Kong or we're back to whatever. And, Godzilla's an afterthought. He's the reserve weapon. It just kind of feels a little lazy. It just, I don't know why you need to put him in the title because this really is mostly a Kong movie and Kong meeting with the other apes and different things. But I don't know. I'm also hot coming off of Godzilla -1. So we just got an incredible monster story, an incredible human story, a movie where they actually did humans and their story and their stakes so well that you cared so much for their safety. Which just has never been the case in these legendary movies, unfortunately. They're overcrowded. In this movie, you got the Brian Tyree Henry character doing podcasting for his, and this is not lost on me that obviously I'm podcasting about this. But, he's like, we're in the Hollow Earth. I got my camera down here. Look at all these things we're discovering. And it's, I don't know. I'm like, I know it's supposed to be funny, but you're like, yeah, we're just gonna send this guy down in there. Like, I don't know. There's too many moments where it felt jokey when it's like, wow, this could actually land as a really serious moment or kind of like a foreboding, terrifying moment. But you got to get the jokes in there, I guess. The Baby Kong character kind of surprised me in a positive way. I would say I didn't expect him to kind of be a dick, but he was. He was a good little foil to Kong's much older and weathered ape. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there was one moment where the two are entangled in battle with other apes, I will just say. And I was almost laughing out loud. I was so shocked by what I saw. So, kudos to that moment and a few others in the film that were pretty badass or just genuinely very funny because of how these monsters fighting plays out. Um, but I don't know. I just watching it, I knew that it should be more enjoyable than it felt like it was. I mean, everything that goes into this on paper, it's like, oh man, turn your brain off, have a great time. And I feel like we say that a lot with movies, and I'm sure I've said it a lot. I'm probably just as guilty as everybody else. But you can turn your brain off and still feel like, why is half of this stuff happening? Like, why do I care about half of these things? Or it's like, oh, good old King Kong with the toothache. We gotta make sure he doesn't have a root canal. We gotta get that thing out. It's just like Kong's a guy, just like you and me. He's just a dude. He's got the same problems. Sure, okay, that doesn't make me more interested in the movie. So I don't know. At the very end, or in the, I would say when they're during battle, when they're up on the surface, much like in the last film, countless skyscrapers are being destroyed, people are being destroyed, but they do it in a way that doesn't like really show any of it. Or obviously you're like, I'm sure there were people in that building, but like, oh man, like they just got killed. Sure. And again, this is not me like griping like, oh, like I can't believe people died. I'm like, I don't care. But if people are dying, like, give me just a little bit of like horror or terror from them as this crazy Scar King ape completely uproots their building to throw you at King Kong. Just, I don't know, just something where I feel like, okay, you know what, shit's really bad. And unless Godzilla and King Kong can fight together, we're screwed. So I don't know. It was fine. It was a movie. I'm sure they're going to keep making these, but I'm very excited for when they decide to do another King Kong and a Godzilla that are completely separate from all of this and actually give them better stories first and foremost, rather than like, all right, which interchangeable Hollywood actors can we put into this film? Because it's like, all right, we got 5 for this one, 5 for that one. We're going to pick and choose our favorites from Kong and from Godzilla. I don't know. It didn't work for me the way I thought it would. It was fine. I still had a decent time at the movies. Again, there are a few sequences that I came out of like, oh, that was great. But for 2024, it feels like, how do we not have a better story for this? How do we not have something that looks a little visually updated? A lot of it just feels like recycled and more of the same that we've gotten before from this series. And so that's a little disappointing, especially with the budget they have. And again, this is me, like, Godzilla minus one cost less than $15 million. And bear with me right here. We're going to find out how much Godzilla Kong cost. All right. I'm going to say it's got to be at least 150 million. Oh, okay. Well, they're saying 135 before marketing. I don't know where it went because it's not on screen. I digress. If you enjoy these kind of movies, I'm sure you're going to have a good time with it. If not, you could probably watch this at home if you need something on in the background. If you want serious, awesome, good monster movies with these guys, Peter Jackson's King Kong, watch the extended edition. And whenever Godzilla Minus One is out on DVD, streaming, anything, it's tough because they're not allowed to release it right now because of this Godzilla and King Kong movie that's coming out. There's this whole deal between the studios that, hey, we're not gonna push for one and then push for another at the same time. It just doesn't make sense, even though one of those movies just won an Oscar and is a billion times better. But whatever, what do I know? Don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger. Thank you guys as always for listening in. Though we're gonna have hopefully a lot better stuff coming out soon. We're gonna get Monkey Man, we'll get Civil War, so keep your ears to the ground. Something good will be coming. As always, you can find us at NT Movie Reviews on all social media networks, podcast platforms, and YouTube, TikTok, Reels, all that good stuff. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.